Lisbon Treaty, he shows you that the Lisbon Treaty is just paper after paper after paper of useless information that is not really telling you anything, because they're trying to bore people so that by the time they go after 3 or 4 pages, they'll just be like, okay, whatever, I'm not going to continue reading this. So that way you'll never really know what the treaty outlines. But eventually he got through every single one of them, and he eventually saw that the main outline is for a supreme chancellor to be in control of every single nation in the European Union, not as a president, but as a dictator of sorts. And then the same people who are trying to pass the Lisbon Treaty are trying to merge the European Union with what would eventually become the North American Union. So then from there, even if the other governments in the world didn't want to merge with them, it would only be a matter of time before different presidents who would see the opportunity to get rich or become even more powerful than they already are would do the same thing Bush has done here. They'd violate the constitutions in their country, and little by little it would become a one world government. Or what would eventually happen, what might happen, is that instead of waiting for all that time, the government made up of the NAU and the EU would do the same things that Hitler did, and they start invading different countries and forcing them to join their one world government. And that's what would happen, is World War III would basically happen. It would be the fascism of the 21st century. The only thing is, it would be totally hidden under the guise of a democracy. That's something that Hitler never did. Everyone in the country knew that they were living under a dictatorship. The people in this one world government, they might suspect it, but they wouldn't understand, because it's the same thing with how people are in this country. One thing that Marxists or communists call this form of government, they call it a bourgeoisie democracy. And to translate what that means is basically, it means elitist democracy. Whenever you hear the term bourgeoisie, it means the elite. So an elitist democracy is basically a government, a capitalist government, where the rich and the powerful have total control over the economy, the society, and even the politics of the country, but they don't do it exactly the same as any other dictatorship would. The thing is, we have the example of Cuba under the Fidel Castro dictatorship. Cuba and the United States both have state-owned media. The thing is, or state-controlled media. The thing is, you do it differently. Over there, the state controls the media directly. Over here, the state controls the media indirectly via the corporations, because the corporations own the media. They've bought up almost all the media outlets except for the independent media. So the corporations will only show what the government, who's protecting them and giving them the right to do whatever they wants them to show. So it's sort of like a little mafia deal, you know, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. They get away with hiding all this information, and they brainwash people. If you take a look at the country, the majority of the people, they have almost the same opinions and the same point of view, and it's very scary that they're like that. They're like these little conformist drones and everything. They've never bothered to think for themselves, and as a result, that's why the government's been able to get away with half the things that they've gotten away with. They had people so 100% sure that Iraq had a connection to 9/11 that most people were begging for war already, like animals. They were like, you know, we want to invade Iraq and whatever, and then every once in a while you'd have citizens that would come out on radio stations after 9/11, and they would say stuff like, you know, please don't go to war. We need to be an example for the rest of the world, you know. We need to be a beacon of hope and light for everybody else. But then a few seconds later, you'd have someone else call in and say, I'm so sick of these stupid Americans. We need to go over there, and we need to kick ass, and we need to do this, and we need to do that. So, I mean, the emotions set in this country, everyone was violent and bloodthirsty, and they just wanted blood. They didn't care who the government went after, as long as there was blood, and as long as the people in 9/11 were avenged, even if they were going after people that had nothing to do with 9/11. So, I mean, it's quite frightening the way that everything is going right now. There's even a woman who wrote a book. Her name is Naomi Wolf, and she wrote a book called The End of America. And she's speaking about how the U.S. government today resembles Nazi Germany from a few years ago. But go ahead. Any questions that you would like to ask me?
Oh, yes. Since you brought up Naomi, I'm wondering, do you think this is the end of America? Because a lot of people do.
Well, I mean, what you have to understand is all these people that they go, oh my God, we're losing our freedom and our democracy. There was never any democracy or freedom when the U.S. government was in power. The only time this country was ever free was when the Native Americans were in control. As soon as Christopher Columbus showed up and said, I declare this land in the name of Spain, and then the French and then the British and all these other people started showing up here, as soon as the colonists showed up here, freedom as we knew it totally had disappeared. This country has always been a police state. The thing is that now, after so long, you have a president who's so, stupid, because there's no other way to say it, that he's out in the open doing these things. Whenever the government was doing things like this, they would hide it or they would cover it up. He's one of the two, actually the three most ridiculous presidents this country ever had, because they exposed themselves out in the open. The first one was a President Calvin Coolidge. He was called Silent Cal. When the workers in this country were making protests against the corrupt laws and everything, what did he do? He sent in the National Guard and he started a massacre. Something that most people here think would only happen in another country, like the Tiananmen massacre in China. It happened here long before Tiananmen with Calvin Coolidge. And then you had Richard Nixon, that he did the same thing, and he was so stupid that he said, well, it's only stealing or it's only lying if you get caught. And then we have Bush, who basically is the king of the most ignorant people in the world, and he's so stupid that in 2000, I believe, or 2001, on December 18th, he said, heck, this would be a whole lot easier if this was a dictatorship. I wouldn't mind as long as I was a dictator. I mean, who says that? So, I mean, the only reason people are opening their eyes now is because the president is so stupid that he does not know how to hide it. But every single president this country has ever had, Republican and Democrat alike, have committed atrocities against humanity like you would not believe. They've done the same thing. The only thing is that now Bush has no tactic whatsoever. He doesn't know how to hide it. He's not charismatic or intelligent at all. I mean, the moment a Democrat comes in power, the illusion of democracy will return, but they'll still be doing the same things. And really, the domestic spy programs are nothing new. They've been doing this as early as the 1920s. In the 1920s, if you look in U.S. history, they were spying on different political dissident groups. They were infiltrating groups. They were arresting people. They were doing all sorts of things. And it continued all the way through the 1950s, through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s. It is nothing new. They have always been spying on us. This is not the end of America. This is America showing its true face. It's the end of the illusion of America, but it's actually the peak of America's global power over the entire world. That's basically it.
Eventually, though, the European Union will be the leaders, the world leaders, right? With their Eurodollar is toppling our dollar. They're gaining a lot of power.
Well, you have to understand that the economy in this country is as bad as it is because Bush and the conservatives are literally, they are on purpose trying to devalue the dollar so that way they'll have an excuse to join the European Union and merge it into a government. The new currency that they want to pass would be called the Amero, which would be the American Euro or something like that. It would be a merge. They're doing this on purpose so then they can tell people, look, you know, the country's in bad shape and the only way we'll survive is if we merge with the Europeans and they have this best healthcare system and this and that, which is true, but they're using it as an excuse to merge with a government so they can make their little dictatorship a lot stronger. So they're doing this on purpose. Right now, the European Union is only on top because, number one, they all merged and they're working together. That's one of the benefits of having a union like that is because they're working together sort of as a community, they've become wealthier as a result of it. But the only reason the economy is anywhere near as bad as it is right now is because the conservatives,